Somehow, in the process of painting Splashy Bird, I accidentally lost one of my videos, and it was about the rocks and removing frisket. And rather than throw the whole class away because the people that took it enjoyed it, I decided to paint some rocks. I have some frisket on here as well. I've already painted a different background, so just ignore that for the sake of learning the rocks. I have some rocks drawn in here already and some frisket in a couple of places. And we're going to have some dark areas on these rocks and then some lighter areas. Usually with rocks you see more than one angle. And they might be slightly different colors from each other, so you might want one that's more gray. So the gray I make with blue, phthalo blue, red hue, and rust. And so this one I'm getting a bit more gray, and I think I'll do some that are even more gray. So I'm just adding more blue to make more gray colors. So right now I'm just putting in color and shape, and then I'll go back and put maybe some texture, at least on these forward ones. Now I want some of this gray darker for the front part. And if it runs in, it's okay, because rocks don't have, always have sharp edges, often don't have sharp edges. I don't have a photo reference for this, and so then you're kind of making things up. I'm softening this edge so there's not a sharp outline on the top of the rocks. Hopefully, anyway. Sharpening it from both sides, the green side and the brown side. I'm going to stick a little bit of blue, gray blue, because the reflections are gray blue, into here where the water is flowing more. But I want to leave some white too, and then I'll be putting more white in later. And over here some water will show, definitely here. And then here, I need to make this rock a little bit more defined, because this would be a place where the water is rushing to make that splash. This is the Bleed Proof White by Dr. P.H. Martins, and it works like paint. It's thicker than paint, and when you use it, you want to get brand new water, totally rinse your brush, tap it on the bottom, get it totally clean, and then you put it right on your palette. You can mix it with other colors, or you can use it straight white. And chances are I'll do some of both. And you can roll it off on your sponge. So I'm going to get some of this coming up here where the water is rushing through. Now I didn't put a splash back here, but it might have been a good idea behind this rock. Probably I'll make that one a little bit bluer. Now it's good to wait till your paper's dry. See how mine's kind of spreading out. Okay, my paper is dry, and I'm going to get a finer brush than this one. This one used to have a really good point, but it's kind of worn out over time. You want skinnier lines. Where the water's rushing, that's different, but where you want it in here, you want them to be pretty skinny, and then they can get a bit wider as they come forward. And my brush is kind of on the dry side, so I'm getting some of that rough parts, and I think that's nice for water. I don't want to get this too much all over. Over here we want more because there's some current here by this part. When you want your point to be at its best, then it helps if you roll it into the paint, and then you keep your point pointy. Now, the back of these rocks, it looks further back than the grass there. So I'm gonna put some edges that pop it forward. And this one too. See how much more forward that looks now. I don't want it to be totally white back there, so I'm gonna, put some colors in here. I'm adding some different colors, yellow, beige. And same with this rock, it has kind of gotten a little bit lost. And then I'll also do some darks so I'm doing little bits of stippling and then just smudging it. Then down in here in the water, some of this rock would show. And back here, I'm just going to make a darker rock so that it defines the other rocks and kind of disappears. Putting some of this darker color down in here, and then the last thing I'll do is go over this with bleed-proof white again. Okay, these rocks I actually like better than my splashy bird rocks, how they turned out. And I'm feeling like there needs to be more of this rushing stream over here. And even going over the rock. But staying behind this rock. I'm making little splatters here that I didn't do with the frisket. When I take off frisket, I use masking tape. You can rub it with your fingers, but you need to make sure your fingers are clean or you can get your paper dirty. You can just do that. If it's a bigger area, it's harder to do that because it doesn't break loose as quickly. And there is a thing that looks like an eraser, but it's really hard, that people use. And I, again, find that some of my dirt that gets on that, the paint that gets on that, transfers onto the paper sometimes. And so I've settled on using tape, and then when it gets paint on it, like they do, I get a new piece or move to a new spot so that I don't transfer paint onto my white areas. I'm going to just run over it. My brush is clear, and lighten some of those. The little ones I won't. And over here, I'm going to leave them. Now back to some more bleed-proof white, getting some more on my palette. And I'm going to add a bigger spray over here to complement that bigger spray. And these ones, as it goes up, I'm adding some white so that it's even whiter than the paper. If you want this to be more accurate, the best thing you can do is find a photo reference. I'm sort of doing this out of my head. Okay, there you have it. That's how you remove the frisket and do the rocks.